This is part 3 for the large oversized crochet flower shaped hair scrunchie. If you have not seen the first 2 parts of how to make this hair scrunchie, I do recommend that you watch those 2 videos first and then come back to this part 3 to learn how to make the next part of this flower scrunchie. In part 1 for this hair scrunchie, for that video tutorial in part 1, I showed you how to work round 1, which is where I work the single crochets around the hair tie elastic. At the end of part 1, you should now have 35 single crochets worked around the hair tie elastic and have joined with a slip stitch. And then for the video for part 2, I showed you how to work the first flower petal. I will leave links to the videos for part 1 and 2 in the description box below, and I have a link to the playlist as well. So now in this video for part 3, I am going to show you how to work your way back down the first flower petal to get back down to the hair tie elastic so that I can work the next flower petal. The way I do that is to work in the end of the rows of the flower petal with slip stitches, working my way back down to the hair tie elastic, since at the end of part 2 in the video tutorial series I completed the 11th row for the first flower petal, and now I need to show you how to get back to the hair tie elastic. That way I can start the next flower petal. In this part 3, I will also show you how to crochet the second flower petal. All of the petals are going to be worked the same way. This flower scrunchie will have a total of 6 flower petals. There will also be a part 4 and 5, since I want to show you how to make this large oversized hair scrunchie without skipping any steps. That way, if you are a beginner that is new to crochet, you will be able to make this flower shaped hair scrunchie from start to finish. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and get started to show you how to make the next part for this scrunchie. So now I need to get back down here to where the hair tie elastic is so I can work the second petal. So to do that, I am going to work slip stitches along this edge, working my way back down towards the hair tie elastic. I will be working slip stitches into the end of the rows, working my way back down to the hair tie elastic so that I can work the second petal. And when you work these slip stitches along this edge here, you want to make sure that you work with a loose tension. You don't want to work with a very tight tension by pulling the stitches too tightly, because then it would curl in. So a recommendation for that, if you feel that your work is curling in, to maybe do the slip stitches with a larger crochet hook. Maybe go up 1 or 2 sizes than the one you're using to work the flower petals. It might keep your tension a little bit looser so that your stitches will not make the petal curl in. Okay, so to begin, I'm not going to work in the edge of this last row that I finished in row 11 because it's already kind of curving downward this way. So I will go into row 10 and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I just need to do 10 slip stitches, working my way back down. So I'll find the edge of row 10 here and insert my hook at the end of the row. And then I will do a slip stitch. One thing you can do when you work this slip stitch is pull the working yarn through the stitch and then just pull up a little bit and then complete the slip stitch, and that will keep you from pulling the stitch too tight and it won't curl in this way then. But if you find that it starts to curl in, then I do recommend that you go up 1 or 2 sizes on your crochet hook when you work the slip stitches. That way it won't curl in when you work your slip stitches here. Okay, so now I'll find the end of the next row, insert my hook, And then when you insert your hook, you want to, instead of just inserting it underneath one strand here, you want to try to get the one behind it as well, so that you're inserting underneath two strands when you do your slip stitch. So that way you're inserting your hook underneath two strands of yarn when you do your slip stitches in the end of the rows. Okay, so now I'm going to yarn over and pull that through the stitch. And then before I do the slip stitch, I'm just going to pull up on the yarn a little bit and then pull it through the loop. Okay, so that's my second slip stitch. So I need to work 8 more, working my way back down this way. Okay, I'm going to work in the end of the next row and start my hook. And you can see I have 2 strands here on the hook. Yarn over, pull through the stitch, and then I'll just pull up on that a little bit, stretch it up a little bit, and then pull it through to do the slip stitch. So far it's not curling in, so that's good. That's the third. Okay, that was the third slip stitch. So now I'll find the next row, start my hook along the end of the row here, along this edge. I have the 2 strands of yarn, and then I will yarn over with the working yarn, pull it through, and then I'll just kind of stretch up a little bit and then pull it through the loop to do the slip stitch. That was the 4th slip stitch. Okay, so I'll find the next row, insert my hook along the edge, and I'm working back towards the hair tie elastic. So I'm going to insert my hook along the edge of my work, and then yarn over, pull that through, pull up a little bit to stretch it up, and then pull it through the loop to do this slip stitch. So that was slip stitch number 5. I have 5 more. Okay, so here's the next row here. So I'll need to insert my hook in the end of that row, on the edge, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'll stretch that up a little bit and then pull it through the loop on my hook to complete the slip stitch. So that was number 6. So I have 4 more rows here, so I need 4 more slip stitches. And then here's the next row here. I'll find the end of the row and insert my hook along the edge of the end of the row, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'll stretch that loop up just a little bit before I pull it through the loop on the hook to complete the slip stitch. And that will help me avoid pulling the slip stitches so tight that it will curl in. Because if I pull the slip stitches too tightly, the work will kind of curl in, and I don't want my petals to curl in like that. So that's why I like to stretch it up a little bit before I pull it through the loop to complete the slip stitch. But if you find that it is curling in still, I definitely would recommend just increasing the hook size when you do the increases, and then when you start the next petal you can go back to the same hook for the 5.0. So when you work the petals you use this hook, but when you do your slip stitches you can use the larger one and just switch back when you're ready for the next petal. Okay, so that was slip stitch number 7. So I find my next row, insert my hook along the end of the row. You can see I want to make sure I get 2 strands here. You don't want to just insert it underneath this one, because it will just be stronger if you insert it underneath both. Your stitches will just be a little bit more sturdy and be a little bit stronger, because being a hair tie elastic, you're going to be wearing this often, and it will just be sturdier if you can get underneath both strands of yarn when you do your slip stitches. Okay, so I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, I'm going to stretch that loop up just a little bit before I pull it through the loop on the hook to do the slip stitch. Okay, so that's slip stitch number 8. You can see I have 2 more rows. This is row 2 and that's row 1 for the flower petal, so I just have 2 more to work. And then I'll be back down to where the hair tie elastic is. Okay, so find the next row here and insert your hook along the end of the row. And you may have to kind of push it onto the hook. It can be a little tricky getting into these stitches along the edge of the flower petal. And then I'll yarn over, pull through, stretch that up a little bit, and then pull it through the loop to do my slip stitch. That's slip stitch number 9. I have 1 more. So this was row 1 for the flower petal, so along that edge I'll insert my hook. I get the 2 strands, and then I will yarn over with the working yarn, pull that through, pull up a loop, stretch it up a little bit, and then pull it through the loop on the hook to do my slip stitch. Okay, so now I have worked my way back, working slip stitches along the edge of the flower petal back towards the hair tie elastic. So that completes the first one. I'm ready to begin the second flower petal. So for this flower shaped hair scrunchie, I am going to have a total of 6 petals. Each petal is worked the same way. So let me show you how to get started working the second petal. Okay, so here I worked in the end of the row for this first row. So you find the very next stitch along the hair tie elastic. So you don't want to go back into this stitch. There's a single crochet there. If you look, that's where the flower petal is. If you can't see it, you can kind of pull up and you can see there is a single crochet into that stitch already. So not into that one. You find the next stitch along the hair tie elastic that has not been worked into yet. You insert your hook into that and yarn over, pull up a loop, and do a slip stitch. Okay, now I'm ready to begin the first row for the second petal. So to begin the next flower petal, so I just did a slip stitch into this stitch here. Into the very next stitch you do a single crochet, and then I want to use a stitch marker. So now I will place the stitch marker into that first single crochet for the second flower petal. So this is row 1 for the flower petal. So this is row 1. This is the first single crochet of row 1 for the second flower petal. Okay, so I did 1 single crochet. So now I need to do 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches, because the first row for the flower petal has 5 single crochets. So I already did 1. So 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches, working along this hair tie elastic. When you finish row 1 for the flower petal, you should have 5 single crochets. The first one is where the stitch marker is. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That completes row 1 for the flower petal. I will leave this stitch marker in place. That way it will make it easy to know where the second row ends. Okay, so to begin the second row for the second flower petal, I am going to chain 1 and turn my work, and then I am going to work 1 single crochet in every single stitch for row 2. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th stitch will be where the stitch marker is. That's when I'll know when I'm to the end of row 2. Okay, so I did a chain of 1 and I turned my work, and now I'm ready to begin the single crochet into the first stitch of round 2, and then I will work 1 single crochet in the rest of the stitches. Okay, so I did 1 single crochet into the first 4 stitches of row 2, and then I need to take the stitch marker out, and into that stitch where the stitch marker was I will do a single crochet. And now I have completed row 2. When you finish row 2, you will have 5 stitches. You will have 5 single crochets. I'm going to go ahead and set the stitch marker aside. I won't need it until I start the next flower petal. To begin row 3, I am going to chain 1 and turn my work, and then into the first stitch of row 3 I will do 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch I am going to do an increase by working 2 single crochets into this next stitch. So into this stitch, 2 single crochets to do an increase. And then into the next stitch I will do just 1 single crochet, and then the next stitch I am going to do an increase by working 2 single crochets into this stitch to do an increase, and then the last stitch of row 3 will have just 1 single crochet. So just to recap, row 3 I did 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then I did an increase into the next stitch, and then 1 single crochet into the next, and then increase into the next one, and then 1 single crochet into the last stitch. And to do the increases I worked 2 single crochets into the stitch. Now I'm ready to begin row 4. To begin row 4 I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and then I am going to work just 1 single crochet in every single stitch. So row 4 is an easy row. There'll be no increases. Each stitch will just have 1 single crochet each. Okay, so that finishes row 4. When you finish row 4, you should have 7 stitches. You can always check your work by looking at the top of the stitches, and when you look at the top of the stitches, they look like little V's if you look at them, each stitch here. So it makes it easy to count your stitches, so you can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I am ready to begin row 5. To start row 5, I will chain 1 and turn my work, and then I am going to do a single crochet into the first stitch. This first stitch of row 5, just 1 single crochet. The next stitch I will work an increase by working 2 single crochets into the stitch. So this stitch I did an increase by working 2 single crochets into the stitch. And then I am going to work 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So the next 3 stitches will have just 1 single crochet each. The next stitch I am going to do an increase by working 2 single crochets into the stitch, and then the very last stitch will have just 1 single crochet. And that completes row 5. When you finish row 5, you should have 9 stitches. 9. Now I am ready to begin row 6. To begin row 6, chain 1 and churn. And then for row 6, I am going to work just one single crochet in every single stitch. So row 6 is an easy row. It just has one single crochet in every single stitch. And that completes row 6. When you finish row 6, you should have 9 stitches. Just to recap, row 6, one single crochet in each stitch. Now I am ready to begin row 7. To begin row 7, I will chain 1 and churn. And then I am going to work one single crochet into the first 4 stitches of row 7. So the first 4 stitches of row 7, just one single crochet each. One. Okay, so that's the first stitch, and then the second one single crochet, third stitch, one single crochet, and the fourth stitch, one single crochet. So the first 4 stitches of row 7, one single crochet each, and then the next stitch I'm going to do an increase by working 2 single crochets into this stitch, and then the last 4 stitches of row 7, one single crochet each. And that completes row 7. When you finish row 7, you should have 10 stitches. So just to recap, row 7, I did one single crochet into the first 4 stitches. The very next stitch was an increase. To do the increase, I worked 2 single crochets into the stitch, and then the last 4 stitches, one single crochet. And now I'm ready to begin row 8. I'm going to start row 8 by chaining 1 and churning my work. And then in row 8, I'm going to work one single crochet in every single stitch. So row 8 is an easy row. It just has one single crochet in every single stitch. This row 8 does not have any increases. It just has one single crochet in every single stitch across. And that completes row 8. When you finish row 8, you should have 10 stitches. Now I'm going to begin row 9. To begin row 9, chain 1 and churn. And then row 9 is a repeat of row 8. Row 9 just has one single crochet in every single stitch. And that completes row 9. When you finish row 9, you should have 10 stitches. The next row is row 10. To begin row 10, I will chain 1 and churn my work. For row 10, I am going to decrease over the first 2 stitches. I will work these 2 stitches together to do a decrease. So I will insert my hook into the very first stitch yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm not going to yarn over and finish the stitch as if it was a single crochet. I'm just going to pull up that loop and then insert my hook into the very next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I just pulled up a loop from the first stitch and then pulled up a loop from the second stitch of the row. So now I'll have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through the 3 loops to do my decrease. So I just worked these 2 single crochets together to combine them into one to do a decrease, basically. So I just worked these 2 stitches together to decrease. The very next stitch is going to have a half double crochet. So to do a half double crochet, you want to yarn over, insert your hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to do a half double crochet. And then I am going to do 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. So the next 4 stitches will have just 1 double crochet each. Here's the first one, the second double crochet, there's the third double crochet, and there's the 4th stitch with the double crochet. So I just did 1 double crochet in the last 4 stitches. The next stitch will have 1 stitch. It's going to be a half double crochet, and then I have 2 stitches left for row 10. I want to work these 2 single crochets together to do a decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch here, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert my hook into the last stitch of the row, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you can see I have 3 loops on my hook. What I did is I pulled up 1 loop from this stitch, and then I pulled up 1 loop from the last stitch of the row, because these 2 stitches I want to work together. So then I will yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to do the decrease. And then I am ready to begin row 11. To begin row 11, I will chain 1 and turn my work, and then I am going to work these 2 stitches together to do a decrease. So I'm going to decrease the first 2 stitches of row 11. So I will insert my hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert my hook into the next stitch. I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So now I will yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to do a decrease. This next stitch is going to have 2 stitches. It will have a single crochet and a half double crochet worked into this same stitch here. So into this stitch I will do a single crochet and a half double crochet. So to begin, I will do a single crochet into this stitch, and then a half double crochet into that stitch where I just did that single crochet. And then the next 2 stitches will have just 1 double crochet each. Okay, so the last 2 stitches I did a double crochet, and then this next stitch is going to have 2 stitches worked into it. It's going to have a half double crochet and a single crochet. So I'm going to start with the half double crochet, and then I'm going to do a single crochet into that same stitch where I just did the half double crochet. And then I am going to do a decrease over these last 2 stitches of this row. So I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert my hook into the last stitch of the row, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now I have 3 loops on my hook, I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to work these 2 stitches together to do a decrease. And that completes row 11. So now I have finished the rows for my second petal. So now I need to work my way down along the edge of this flower, working the 10 slip stitches just like I did here. I'm going to work my way back down the flower petal, working my way back towards the hair tie elastic. So I will go ahead and do my slip stitches into the end of the rows. I will work 10 slip stitches. So this is row 11 here. This is where I did the decrease, so I'm not going to do a slip stitch into the end of row 11 since it already kind of curves downward. So I will work a slip stitch into the end of row 10, a slip stitch into the end of the row 9, a slip stitch into the end of row 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 towards the hair tie elastic, so that means I need 10 slip stitches. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. Here's the row 11, so you find this one here. This is row 10, so if I work along the side here, I'll insert my hook just like I did that first one. You want to insert your hook in the end of the rows, trying to get underneath 2 strands of yarn, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to stretch that up just a little bit and then pull it through the loop to do the slip stitch. Then I find this next row here. I'm going to work in the end of the row by doing a slip stitch, and you can see I inserted my hook at the end of the row, making sure I got underneath 2 strands of yarn. Now I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then before I pull it through this loop that's already on the hook, I'm going to stretch it up just a little bit, then pull it through to do the slip stitch. And when you just pull up the loop a little bit first, it just makes sure that that helps it from curling in when you do your slip stitches. So that was the second slip stitch, working in the end of the rows. So then I find this next row here, and I want to work into the end of the row here. So I'll insert my hook. And sometimes it's a little tricky to get into the end of the rows. You can kind of just work through the end there. You might have to just twist your hook a little bit to get into the stitch along the edge, and then yarn over, pull up a loop, and before I pull it through to do my slip stitch, I'm going to stretch it up just a little bit, then pull it through to complete my slip stitch. And I just want to kind of flatten it down and look and make sure it's not curling inward. So far so good. So that was my third slip stitch, working back down the end of the rows here. Okay, so then the next one, working in the end of the rows. I'm going to pull up a loop, and before I pull it through to do my slip stitch, I'm going to just stretch it up a little bit and then pull it through to complete the slip stitch. Okay, so that was number 5. Now find the next one, insert my hook in the end of the row, pull up a loop, stretch it up, and then pull it through the loop to do my slip stitch. Okay, that was slip stitch number 5. Then I'm going to insert my hook into this end of the row here. I only got it underneath 1 strand, so I want to make sure I get that one behind it, because when I insert it into the end of the row, I want to make sure I get it underneath 2 strands. And then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and before I pull it through the loop to complete my slip stitch, I'm going to just stretch it up a little bit, then pull it through. That way it just makes sure it doesn't curl in. Okay, that was slip stitch number 6. So then I find the next row here, insert my hook along the end of the rows, making sure, and sometimes you have to kind of wiggle the hook through the stitch to get into it. Let me just make sure I get underneath 2 strands. Yeah, there we go. Alright, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then before I pull it through the loop to complete my slip stitch, I'm going to stretch it up just a little bit, then pull it through to do my slip stitch. Okay, that was slip stitch number 7. So you can see I have 3 more rows here, because this is row 1, 2, and 3. So I just have 3 more slip stitches working back towards the hair tie elastic. That was slip stitch number 7, so this is going to be 8. I'm going to insert my hook in the end of the row. You can see I got 2 strands, yarn over, pull up a loop, and before I pull it through, I'm going to stretch it up just a little bit, then pull it through the loop to do my slip stitch. And then I'm just going to kind of check and make sure I like the way that looks. Alright, and then I just have 2 more here, because this was row 2 when I was doing the flower petal, so I need to do a slip stitch in the end of this row 2 here. So I will insert it along the... Alright, so I've got it inserted in the end of the row. I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to stretch it up just a little bit and then pull it through the loop to do my slip stitch. That was slip stitch number 9, working my way back towards the hair tie elastic. And then you can see I have 1 more row here. This was row 1 of the flower petal, and that is going to be my 10th slip stitch. So into the end of row 1 here, I'm going to insert my hook. I've got it underneath 2 strands, yarn over, pull it through to pull up a loop, and then stretch it up just a little bit before you pull it through that loop to do the slip stitch. Okay, so now I have finished working my way back down along the end of the rows of this second flower petal, working towards the hair tie elastic. So after I finished row 11, I did not do a slip stitch into the side of row 11 since it already kind of was curling down. I started in the 10th row and worked the slip stitches. So since I started with row 10, I did a slip stitch in the end of the row, then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, basically all the way down. So now I have my 10 slip stitches. So then, now I need to find the very next stitch along the hair tie elastic. So you can see I did a slip stitch into the end of the row for row 1. So if you pull that up, you can see this single crochet is into this stitch. There's a stitch in here, so not back into that one, into the very next stitch along the hair tie elastic. So if you can't tell where it is, you just basically pull up on this and you can see this is row 1. There is a single crochet into that one. So into the very next stitch along the hair tie elastic, you insert your hook and do a slip stitch. Okay, so now I have 2 flower petals completed. I just need 4 more. So you're basically just going to repeat this until you have 6 flower petals in total. And I'll go ahead and show you each one. That way, if you want to do this as a crochet along and see every single step, that way if you are a beginner, it's just easier, I think, if you see every single stitch as a crochet along. I think it'll just be easier to follow. So basically though, if you want to skip ahead, you basically just repeat this flower petal over and over again. When you finish the flower petal and you've worked your way down with the slip stitches, you make sure to do a slip stitch and then begin your next flower petal. Work the rows for the flower petal just like I did row 2. Work your way back down. Then you do after you work your way back down, when you finish your 3rd petal, you find the next stitch along the hair tie elastic, do a slip stitch, then you start your next flower petal, and you just do that until you get here. And then once you have your 6 flower petals, then you would just basically do a slip stitch at the end. And I will go ahead and continue showing you each flower petal. That way, if you want to work this as a crochet along, I will be showing you every single step. I'll show you every single stitch from start to finish. That way, it's just easier for anyone that's a beginner to see every single stitch. So that's why I'm going to work all of the flower petals rather than just show you this and say repeat flower petal 2 over and over again, and then I'll show you how to finish. I just think it's going to be easier for someone who's a beginner that wants to see every single stitch in every single flower petal crocheted on camera. That way it will make it easy for anyone to make this flower shaped hair scrunchie, whether you're a beginner or someone that's been crocheting for a very long time.